Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping individuals start, build, and operate the premier accounting firms in their areas, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what they're worth. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, and this episode is going to be a wonderful conversation. We're going to be discussing things ranging from purchasing a firm, growing the business, obviously dealing with things related to acquiring a business, and a variety of other things that I think you'll find very interesting as someone actually moves from the corporate world into actually running an accounting business, servicing the accounting clients. Now, in addition to all those things, I've got a variety of questions for our guest today. It's Lee Bowen. Lee happens to be the owner of Certus Accounting and Tax Services. He's now owned that for over a year. And obviously in doing so, you've had an amazing career. So Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Roger.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So first of all, give us a little bit of background on yourself. How did you get into the accounting profession? What drew you to it?
A little bit of a long story. I never really intended on being an accountant, actually, even though I did study that. So I went in my undergraduate degree, and I loved accounting. I loved the problem-solving aspect of accounting, but I realized that being an auditor or deep dive into tax law was not really for me. And so I graduated with my accounting degree, went to be a financial analyst.
Okay. All right.
And I entered the corporate world. So I entered the corporate world in various roles, and I had some controlling type roles, but I didn't, complete a CPA or do anything like that. But I worked in the corporate America for a long time and had a lot of great experiences. It was a lot of fun. I learned from so many people, and I worked with accountants. I had accountants work for me. I had CPAs working for me, and it was great. They knew everything. And so I always have had accounting be a part of my life, but I never truly wanted to be that accountant. So that's how it came to be. And then at the end of 2020, I decided to hang it up from corporate America. It was fast and furious, traveled the world, went and learned a lot of international business law, and it was crazy and fast and furious. And I decided it was time for change and pace. So I kind of retired and was here in Utah and skiing and golfing for a while. And
good.
I was doing that, and then I realized, I can't do that forever. Starting to drive my wife a little bit crazy. As I followed her around the house sometimes, but I realized I needed to do something. So I started looking at little businesses here and there, and I got a call one day from somebody who said, I think I have a business you might be interested in acquiring. And so that's where it went. We went from there, and here we sit today.
I love it. So you obviously moved up the ranks in the corporate world before now owning a business. So I want to go back to the corporate world real briefly.
Okay.
As CFO, you were running a multi-international company and very involved with that, did it for a number of years. I'm curious, what did you like about the CFO role, and how would you describe that?
What I loved about the CFO role is I kind of felt like I was a middleman, a liaison between understanding, the finance and accounting world, and making heads or tails of that with somebody that was really good at marketing, or somebody that was really good at sales, or somebody that was really good at other aspects. And so you had cross-functional teams, and I thought that my strength was really taking complex financial information or data, I would say, and turning it into information that could be used and leveraged and to drive the business. I felt like my favorite role was just helping steer the business in the direction that it needed to go. And if you could bring that diversity and skill set together and I kind of helped them take the wheel, but I provided them the tools to take the wheel. That's what I really loved doing. And so that was great. And I did that as a CFO we took a business, and it was $600 million at one time. And by the time I left, we had crossed over the $2 billion range. So
incredible.
Yeah.
Now, that's very good. And one of the things I liked about how you explained that is the evolution from data to information. And then in my narrative, I would explain it being then knowledge and wisdom. We refer to it as the wisdom pyramid. So as you were sharing that kind of came back to mind. The other thing that I liked about the whole CFO experience is you're getting the information to be useful for the decision makers in the organization so that they can kind of guide and manage the business. So I like that explanation as well. So you retire from that. You now follow your wife around the house, and you have the opportunity to acquire a business, obviously accounting and tax. What intrigued you about getting back into the business world, but now as an owner of a company? Why that as the direction? What excited you about that?
Well, I had looked at various businesses, and because I was dabbling, saying, well, I can't just twiddle my thumbs and golf and ski all the time.
Obviously you didn't want to do a job. So
that's correct. So I looked at various businesses, and I had some criteria that I was looking at. I wanted something that had a revenue stream that was more on a subscription model, subscription-based model, so that I'm not the most brilliant marketer that's out there. I admit that I'm more of a finance and accounting guy. And so I wanted something that was established. I wanted something that had a reputation and that could, frankly, I'm a numbers guy. So I wanted cash flow.
I love it.
And I thought it was very complementary to my skill set. Even though I hadn't been done professional services, I haven't been a part of professional services. I was very intrigued by that in my own personal investments and other things that I had done, realizing that, how entities are set up, what's the most optimal way of setting them up tax-wise, what the bookkeeping is required to do those kind of things, and understanding what unemployment taxes, all those kind of things as you hire employees. I had people before that did that, and now I wanted to be in the midst of that myself. And so that was a criteria. I wanted to have something that, again, was a subscription type business and something that I was familiar with and that I could continue to add value. I knew that I wanted to have team members that were knowledgeable, yet I could also be the one that helped take financial data and turn it into information and work with small business owners. So it was very attractive to me knowing that how established the business was, that it was on a subscription model, like I said, but also that I could still do the role that I still felt I could be. I could be a mini CFO for various clients while I had, bookkeepers and practitioners that worked for me that did a lot of the day-to-day stuff, and I could still interact with clients. And so it was a great complement to what I had done in the past, and it's been fun so far.
I love it. Now, the idea of purchasing a business, how did you determine the worth of that business you were acquiring? How did you establish this is what you're willing to pay for it?
It's a good question, Roger. Typically in my background, you look at multiples of EBITDA, right? Uh-huh. And I learned quickly as I did some homework that, finance and accounting firms, while that is a key indicator, really it's a multiple of revenue. And that was strange to me and bizarre. I thought, well, wait, is that right? But it really is right. It's, anywhere from 0.9 to 1.5 if it's really, really good of revenue. And so, that's what I learned what the value was. And so this particular business that I acquired, I looked to see what the annual revenues were and felt like the price was fair. And so I made an offer and it was accepted.
Excellent. Now, that process, how long did it take you from first becoming aware of the business being maybe open to being sold to now making the transaction final and you acquiring the company? How long of a time period?
It was a pretty, not tremendously lengthy due diligence process. I wanted to do my due diligence because it was my own capital that I was investing in the business. And there's some personal risk that you take on with that, right? And so I wanted to do some due diligence. I would say, let's see. So the acquisition took place on August 1st of 21. And I started those conversations around April. So that's when it came to me, and I did some due diligence and I looked into some things and went and interviewed. There's a whole lot of steps that I went through to acquire, but I would say to answer your question directly, it was around 4 months or so.
Excellent. Now, when someone's selling the business, there's a variety of motivations to sell the company: retirement, health situations, family. There's a variety of things. When this particular owner was leaving, did they want to stay around, an immediate exit? Did you expect them to stick around for a period of time as part of the transition? What was that process like for you?
Really, really good question. And I feel I landed into something that was really unique and something that fit me personally well, which was the individual that was selling the business wanted to remain in the business. And she wanted to remain as a practitioner. So her strength was she's very good with clients, brilliant at what she does. She's an EA or an enrolled agent, has just built this business almost not by accident because of who she was, but it got above and beyond. The business management component of it was above and beyond what she wanted to do. She wanted to continue to love on and service the clients that she's built over time, and also take some time to be with her family and to dwindle down. So she said, hey, I'm not interested in selling to get out. I'm interested to just get out of the business management component of it. And so part of that decision-making process for me was seeing if it was an individual that I could work with, that I'd want to work with, and would I hire? And the answer is an absolutely resounding yes. I mean, she's phenomenal. She's a joy to work with. She's brilliant at what she does. And so I think we found a great relationship where she sold the business and I do that day to day, the business management of it, the hiring, the firing, all of those decisions, the tech stack, all of those things that we do. And she's able to continue to work with the client base that she's built up over time. And so We'll see where it goes after a year. I wondered, when I bought the business, we made it a year agreement. She would stick around for a year. We'd see where it went. And then we re-upped that because it's going so well. We mutually agreed that it is going well and we want to continue that relationship. So I hope it goes for a long term.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was very, very unique because a lot of times when you buy a business, the owner is ready to exit or do something different. And she wanted to remain, which to me, I didn't want to be a tax practitioner, but so it's and she didn't want to be a business owner. And so it was a great little combination and business relationship that we formed.
Perfect. Now I'm curious, did she retain any equity in the business?
She did not.
Okay.
She did not. She did a full 100% sale of the business. And as a part of that came on as an employee. So she signed an employment agreement to remain on there. And so, that's a little unique because, when you get an SBA loan, things like that, there are certain requirements, right, about how owners, previous owners are or not a part. And so this was structured a bit differently so that we can retain her as a part of the business.
Yeah, I definitely say it's unique. It's not the common thing I've experienced. Most business owners mentally check out, and there's one of the motivations to leave the business before they kind of tank it. So to see that she's very eager about remaining, staying involved, engaged, and has done so is incredible. So that's great. How about culture? Obviously, you're coming into a business that's already established, has employees. These employees have relationships with the clients. You're looking at it as you're assessing the value of the business as to whether or not this is also a culture you can kind of move into. Tell us about that transition of August 1, you acquire the business, now you're the boss. How did the employees take it? How did they take the news that she was selling the business?
Yeah, good question. So part of my due diligence and why it took a little bit of time was I felt it was important that I understood the culture. I wanted to make sure that it was a culture that I was aligned with and that they would be aligned with me. So I knew that when I acquired the business, there was, on an asset acquisition, you're acquiring, the client base, but you're also acquiring the team members and what they do. So I did one-on-one interviews and she allowed me to do that. So and she was comfortable with that. So they got to know me, I got to know them. And as a part of the interview process, I just asked, some really bold questions such as, what do you think about working here? What's it like working with the owner? What's it like working with your teammates? What do you envision the company being? And so I shared also my vision. I said, if I go through with this and I acquired the firm, this is kind of what I vision. And so I got a feel that most of them would be aligned with me. And so that gave me a lot of comfort. So when I came in, I realized I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I knew it was already there. And I wanted to seek to understand first rather than to be understood. I think that's really important. I didn't want to rock the apple cart. I think they had some things going and going well. However, they had reached kind of capacity, whether the technology they were using had reached capacity or there were some challenges that come with a growing business. And it was a rapidly growing business. And so with growth comes some growing pains. And so I didn't want to make any changes, and I didn't make any dramatic changes for the first little while. I wanted to make sure that culture was maintained and that I understood how that culture was run, whether that was even the meetings themselves, how frequent those meetings were with the entire team, and how that was done. So it's a great culture, and it continues to be a great culture. It's a very collaborative. She's instilled a very collaborative culture, a culture of more of in the office. I know we're in a time now where it's outside the office is kind of the buzz, as well as offshoring. Yeah. And I think that makes sense for others. But for our particular firm, in the culture that we have, us being together and helping each other is really important. So we have not really changed the culture at all. I think it's very much aligned with how I like to work and aligned with how she's built the company over time.
Perfect. You're giving a lot of great information here. So you alluded to change, whether or not there was going to be change with you taking the helm and starting that position. I'm curious, were there any sacred cows? What I'm referring to is sometimes someone in that transition says, here are some things that I really ask that you not change. Was there anything like that where she was maybe direct or emphatic of these things need to remain as they are?
No, she's been nothing but graceful, nothing but realizing who becomes the boss. But we haven't really had that kind of boss-employee relationship. It's been almost like a partnership. In spite of ownership and equity has changed. She was very open and saying, this is your company, you run it as you see fit. But even last night we had a company party. We had a holiday party. I wanted to do that early rather than later, so we did it November 30th. But she just talked about, hey, I appreciate that you haven't done it and you haven't destroyed the company. You've actually grown it, and things are going really well. So
excellent.
There was nothing really sacred. I think she had a heart of gold. She loved the team members that she had brought on board and how she had treated them. I think she felt really wanted to see how I would treat them. And so, that if there was anything, I guess I would say it would probably be the team members that she had.
Good. Okay. And then you also alluded to hybrid and offshore. So let's talk about hybrid. There are a lot of changes that came because of COVID, a lot more remote type work, hybrid type work schedules. How has that, affected your office? It sounds like you actually work in the office.
For the most part, we do.
Good.
I have a couple of roles that we have that are outside, but it speaks to, it's kind of a loaded question because it speaks to a little bit of the demographics of who I hire. So I have some very seasoned professionals, but I also have some who I'm willing to train. They're bookkeepers, right? So this means I have one who's a great individual who said, look, I'm going to go study accounting. I don't know much about accounting, but I know I like it. Is there a place for me? And I said, you know what? There is a role for you. Let's train you. Let's teach you. And so in order to be able to have that type of demographic of experience, it does require some in-office hand-holding, not only that, but also mentoring, coaching. And I do believe that is so much better handled in a face-to-face environment. And so given our employee demographic in that and where I've located my office, it makes it very easy to do so. But we have had sometimes, we do have remote work at times. Some of my payroll stuff that can be done. It's very repetitive. That can be done. Somebody that is a working mom, for example, that one is at home. But for the most part, I would say about 90% of my positions are in the office.
Fascinating. I, like you, have kind of a unique situation. I've got some employees that work remotely, that work from their homes, but my preference still is having them work in the office. I think there's such a dynamic that occurs in the office that otherwise doesn't take place with people that are rarely seen. If seen, they're over a Zoom or a Google Meet or something. And so I like what you just shared there simply because of the fact that we're all having to deal with it. That's something that I think is just naturally going to be asked by the interviewee. Can I work from home? I think these are things that we're all facing. I don't see it going away anytime soon. You brought up offshoring as well. Do you have any thoughts or insights on that?
Roger, I've thought about it, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that. Meaning I haven't really explored it because of how things are working for me. And I fear for the culture. To me, culture is extremely important. I think it's who we are. It's the client, who we are to our clients as well. And so it may be the point one day where we have to go there, but right now I've been able to satisfy the demand and bring on team members that are here. I'm not opposed to offshoring. I mean, in my corporate career, we did all sorts of things to save cost, and also we had for IT support, for example, was around the sun. So having IT hubs around the globe, so 24/7, someone who's awake working on something, that's great. In this particular environment, though, in this professional services environment, it may be some of the more basic things can be done offshoring. However, I would prefer to handle that somebody here locally in my current time zone. Though time zone, it can be overcome, by the way. Going back to my corporate career, Costa Rica, for example, we offshored some things in Costa Rica, which is almost the exact same time zone as where we were, and it was great. So I'm not overly opposed to it. I have not implemented it for various reasons because I haven't reached that point now of not being able to find the talent to get the job done.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've known numerous individuals that were not so eager to go the offshoring route, and with the unemployment rate being what it is and the difficulty in hiring people with the demand growing their business, a lot of people have found themselves as moving that direction, and some have had some very pleasant experiences finally making that leap. So kind of an interesting question that some people face sooner or later.
I'll have to look at it.
Yeah. Well, you've got experience with it, so I trust that you'll do the right due diligence, I guess. Here's a question. You've got your CFO $2 billion background and experience, and now you're working with clients that I presume are a little bit smaller. What kind of experiences have you noticed are different working with different companies, smaller companies that you've enjoyed and liked?
I think there's some similarities and there's some differences. I mean, from a similar standpoint, understanding balance sheets and income statements and drivers, that principle is the same. Understanding, I call them levers, right?
Yep.
What are the levers that you have to pull? And our client base, a lot of them are franchisees. So they are beholden to a franchisor that has rules, regulations, certain things that they can and can't do. Pricing, they have no control over, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So some things that are very similar from what I did before is you understand the levers of what you can control. How do you optimize your P&L? How do you find inefficiencies in the P&L? That's all kind of the same. The differences are the numbers, the scale is a little bit different.
Yep.
On the number side, less zeros, but it all is kind of the same. Some of the differences that I found is, these are entrepreneurs that are doing, umpteen things, and they don't have as much time to dedicate into, fancy reporting or the in-depth understanding of their business. They're just trying to make sure the lights are kept on. They have enough staff to keep things going, and they have enough inventory, and they can meet, I sympathize and empathize with them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think the big difference, which goes to your question, is they have to know a lot about a lot of things. The breadth of their understanding is there. And so I think where we can come in and help is let me help you on this side of the house, which is on your number side, on the business side. Let me highlight some things and some levers that are opportunities for you to look at where you can control.
I like how you described that, because similarly, I would describe it as they're wearing more hats than the larger organizations typically have.
Mm-hmm.
They're, as smaller entities, they're in a situation where those multiple hats require you, as you interact with them, to address those various roles that they're trying to take care of. So that's how I've seen it myself. But your point was very true to say, the balance sheet just has more zeros. The P&L just has more zeros. What you're looking at more is just the ratios. The ratios are tried and proven. They're just business principles. We're looking at those margins, those ratios, and we're managing accordingly to try and increase or improve each of those. So, yeah, well said. Let me ask the myths associated with owning a business like you do, where you're running the successful accounting and tax service business. Is there a common myth that someone has of you? For example, tax season, you're always busy.
Let me think. Myths. I think the myth might be is owning your own business is great. You're your own boss, and there's not as much stress. There is. The stress is just different, right? I think there are some luxuries that are there as you compare to the corporate world than what you had before. But I think the myth that it's just easy peasy is not there. I mean,
Thank you.
Sometimes your mind doesn't shut off, even for Thanksgiving break, right? I'm with my family, but my mind's churning about various things that I should be doing or things I should be changing, or what am I doing wrong? How have I interacted with this employee better? All those kind of things.
Completely relate, by the way.
Right. I mean, these are myths. Like, it's so much easier when you're your own business, you're a business owner. And I think it's just different stress, but I like it a little bit better for the fact that it's me. It's my own skin in the game, but it is fun. I'm having a great time doing it. But I think that was a big myth, is that it's easy as a business owner, and it's not. It's almost like you never have that turn off or shut off time.
Yeah.
When you're working for a business, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll get to that tomorrow. And sometimes you're able to shut off your mind a little bit more. But when it's your own business, no.
Yep. The analogy I'll sometimes give is that of chess. I just think there's a lot of strategy, a lot of gameplay. It's a lot of mind. You're just processing a lot of things, and you're trying to see, okay, if I do this, what's that next move going to then look like thereafter? And yeah, I enjoy it as well. So it's kind of fun. What advice would you give to someone who's considering either purchasing a business like you have, merging with another accounting firm? What did you learn in that process that you could give it as advice?
I would due diligence is not underrated. I mean, you should do your due diligence. Make sure it's something that's aligned with what you want. I had some criteria I'd set before when I buy a business, and I was able to check those boxes. I go into it. Maybe not 100% of those boxes, but most of them should be checkable, so that you. That it works for you. And there's a lot of businesses that are out there. I mean, you can go to business brokers. A lot of them are trying to sell, and it may or may not be the right fit for you and who you are and what you want.
Perfect. Let's talk about the business itself. It's accounting and tax services. Give us an idea of what that looks like. Do you have accounting department, tax department, working with accounting clients, tax clients? We've spoken of professional services. Do you offer any CFO and advisory type services? Just give us an idea of what that looks like for you.
So our focus is really on we have various demographics, our client demographics, but the main one that we have is, like I mentioned, franchisees.
Correct. So
we have it's very similar. And so what that means for us is that we can have process. And that's another thing, when I acquired the business, I was very comfortable with, is because I'm a big process guy. I believe that something that's repeatable, and it's something you can put in place like that, you're less error prone and you can provide a high quality service, and you find efficiencies in doing so. So it started out really as everyone was everything. And that's, if there's one change that I made, it's moving towards more of a specialized group. And so it was hard if you take somebody that's bookkeeper and they're going to do bookkeeping and they're going to do payroll, they're going to do all of these things. That's a very steep learning curve. However, if you're able to specialize and then help them transition and learn other things as well, then you can move forward and help them progress. But what Certus provides is we primarily do bookkeeping services. We are bookkeepers for various clients, and that also then dovetails into various things. We do sales tax. So as we do the bookkeeping, we finish up the sales tax. We know all the revenue stuff that needs to happen, and we do sales tax in various states for these clients. As they're, we have to understand their point of sale system, how that works. So we do sales tax for them, we do bookkeeping for them, and we pay their people. So we manage their payroll. And so with this particular franchisee, they have, anywhere from 30 to 50 employees, and they are rotating as they come. They're high school students or college students or things like that. And so we manage the payroll and bringing people on board and paying them on a weekly basis. So bookkeeping, sales tax, payroll, and then that also then moves into the other side of the business, which is income tax preparation and income tax advisory. So that piece of the business, the income tax, was really how the business began. It originated by doing income taxes, and that bookkeeping was kind of on the side to help on the seasonal, keep the cash flow coming throughout the year, right?
Yes.
Rather than the pops that come during tax season. So we do some income taxes as well, and we are trying to find a little more time to be more on the advisory side, also with these clients, rather than just do the income tax preparation. As I've come in, I've offered some CFO advisory services. I've done some consulting there. That piece of the business is in development. To be frank, we haven't moved for. I need the resources to do that. And frankly, I've been pretty busy over this. It's hard to believe that a year and a half's gone by almost here, but just getting infrastructure in place and process in place, and the hiring and the firing. And, we've doubled the business since I bought it. So, and it's all been kind of the same on those same silos that I talked about: bookkeeping, sales tax, payroll, and some income tax preparation. And so I do believe there's a great opportunity for us to expand there. And I know clients are screaming for that. We've moved, even some of the bookkeepers in the output and the deliverable. I've tried to make that more polished. I want to have it something that is rather than just a QuickBooks output file. It's very much a polished deliverable of multiple pages of analytics that I've had in there as kind of my FP&A background, financial planning and analytics. And we've included some of that so that by default, they have some of that as a part of their deliverable, even without subscribing to the advisory services. I do believe that's a pretty important retention tool. Is I don't want to be just a bookkeeper. I want to be somebody that provides them information, not just data or a compilation of their data into, GAAP required, balance sheet and income statements and cash flow statements. I want to have something that they can look at that deliverable and read it. And so that a non-finance person or accounting person can say, oh, okay, he's bringing up to point some ratios here. I should be looking at these ratios. And so it's not a ratio about everything, but that deliverable is the start, I believe, in forming that relationship that's more long-term. And that we can open up more of those advisory services where they have appointments with me and say, let's open up this deliverable now. Let's talk about it for the next hour. Let's highlight some of those things where you have opportunities, some of the levers that you can pull.
I love how you've described that. It's very much similar to the conversations I'm having with other owners as they determine what is that next thing that they're going to be providing to their clients. You mentioned a value add, bringing in a little bit more of those analytics for the business owner, giving them the information that the bookkeeping's providing for them to be able to make more informed business decisions. So the easiest way I've looked at describing it in the conversation is that there's 3 core services that a firm is able to focus on when providing accounting, bookkeeping, CFO type services. You've got the accounting, the bookkeeping, you've got the tax preparation, the tax planning, you've got the CFO and advisory. So those 6 things make up the 3 core areas, and you've described them very well, because I think what you're alluding to, or even said, the business owners are needing it. They're eager for it. They're craving it. And we're needing, as an accounting profession, to step in and really fill those voids and address those needs that they have. So well done in identifying that and moving towards it. I'm going to now go to a little bit more personal side of this.
Okay.
So in going personal, we've got a number of things I want to address. I'm going to go back to buying the business. Here you are, you're retired. You're skiing, you're golfing, you're enjoying life, you're perhaps at home, as you mentioned, and you come to your wife and you say, "Hun, I've got a great idea. I want to take this nest egg of ours and I want to go buy a business. Mm-hmm. And it's a sizable nest egg, and I'm going to go buy it, and I'm going to be an accounting business." What was the reaction? What's the support been like? What has she been for you as you've been going through this journey this last year and a half?
She's incredible. She's my rock. She has put the utmost trust in me. So that conversation is, she says, "Okay, if you think this is right, let's do it." And having a partner that is supportive is crucial to moving forward and doing that. And it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it is taking some of your personal capital, some of that nest egg, as you say, and saying, "Okay, we're going to plop this down for an opportunity to learn and grow." And we've not built a business. We've not owned a business like this before, and let's go. And she was incredibly supportive and continues to be so. She's always been supportive, and we've moved around the world, and she's been supportive of me, and I have nothing but immense gratitude for her and for my kids. We lived in Central America for a while for a company, worked for a company, and I was the head of finance over Latin America. And so you'd think, okay, that's great. Central America, Panama, that's going to be pretty easy, not too bad. Well, what makes it, and we both speak Spanish, so that makes it a little bit easier. What makes it a little more challenging was that this was about 80 to 90% travel. So any given week, I could have been in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, you name them, Mexico. We were all over Latin America. It was for tax reasons that we were in Panama. So my family, she likes to say, I lived in Panama. He visited me there when he wasn't working, which is somewhat true. I give that example to show how supportive she was. We've moved all over the country and all over the world doing various things, and it's been nothing but support. I have a girl from New England. She grew up in New England. I grew up in Utah. We come together, we meet in college, and she's been with me all the way. And we're going to actually, in a couple of days, we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of our first date. So we're pretty thrilled. It's a big year for us. 25 years she put up with me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations. And
Thank you.
that narrative that you shared of that support, so often I find that to be true. There's got to be someone there that's in your corner, that's your cheerleader, that basically allows you to kind of lean on. And I like that you have that. How about your children? What are you hoping that they're learning as they watch you go from the corporate world, doing the travel like you did? Now you're in a position where you're owning and operating and running a business. What do you hope that they're learning or have learned from this?
I hope they're seeing that the sky's the limit. There are no limitations to what somebody can do. You just have to have a passion, and you have to work hard. I learned it from my father. My father was a teacher. He taught special ed for 35 plus years, but he was one of the hardest workers and is the hardest worker that I know. And, I don't think I'm the sharpest tool in the shed, but I was the guy that was in the library in college, on Friday nights trying to get, understand concepts and doing math problems and those kind of things. And I hope my kids have seen that both me and their mom are hard workers. And it doesn't matter. You can kind of outwork. Some people are a lot smarter than me or us, and that's okay. But we can work. They're not going to outwork us. That's for darn sure. I hope they're seeing that. Hopefully they're seeing too that you can survive in society in various professions. even taking a break from the corporate world, or saying I'm done with the corporate world and going and owning your own business. And I hope they don't have to go into business either. My oldest son, he's preparing to he wants to get accepted into medical school. So
wow,
that'll be great. And that's fine. If he's not in business, he's in med. He likes all that chemistry and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that's not me, but I'm more of a numbers guy. But I hope they're seeing that hard work is one of the most important qualities, and that there are no limitations.
Just the fact that you brought up hard work makes me happy, because I think that's something that should be emphasized more and more. That is truly, I feel, one of the keys to success. In my career, I was willing to show up earlier than everyone else and stay longer than everyone else, work harder, but it's being dependable. It's showing up, just being there. And I think that's more than most people in the workforce, unfortunately. So if you can just show up, be there early, stay a little longer, it really makes a difference. That extra half hour a week, that gives you 2.5 hours, or an extra half hour a day gives you that extra 2.5 hours a week over someone else's productivity, and it can really add up quickly. So just a big deal.
And that's, if I can just interject here a little bit too, is when you're looking for talent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a resume can talk about, they have an EA or a CPA, or they have, certification in QuickBooks. Yeah, that's great. But what I really look for too is that grit, that hard work ethic. And I have had people come to me and say, look, like I already explained a little bit. Somebody said, I don't know accounting. I have not used QuickBooks, but I'm going to go right now. I'm going to figure this out in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to go try to figure this, self-certify. And those are the kind of people like, you know what, we can mentor you. And because of the office environment that we have mentors, and I can't have that with every position for sure. I have to have some skilled individuals in there, but I will take that any day as somebody that has that grit, that determination, that hard work ethic, because I know it'll stick and they'll learn and they're hungry. That hunger is really important.
Yeah.
I read a book. We read a book when I was in my last corporate job when I was CFO that was really, really good. It talked about 3 principles or qualities of hiring.
Okay.
That is hungry, humble, and smart. It's called The Ideal Team Player.
Okay.
Great book for anyone that's looking to hire somebody. I don't get any endorsements from this, but this is something I subscribe to. And it's one of the first books that I have my team read. We have a book club. It's optional. We read various books, business books that I've read throughout my career. And I buy them for the team, and we read them. And at a team meeting, we just discuss them. And that was the first one that I had them read. It's a little fable, but it's a good one. I can't remember the author. I think Lincioni, might be his last name. But we look for individuals that are humble, that are hungry, and that are smart. So anyway.
I love it. So I don't currently have this going on, but I have in my staff meetings done a book club where each of us as members would suggest a book. And then as we went through reading the book, we would discuss it and its application to the office and their personal lives. I've had phenomenal conversations that have come from those books. And honestly, I've read books that I would never have picked up because of the suggestions someone else in the groups, made. It was their choice to recommend a book, and by darn, they gave a book, and I never would have picked it up, and it was incredible. And it really did change some of the things that we were doing in the office. So great suggestion. Thanks for offering it. Let's ask about you and your childhood. Give me a childhood memory, a favorite memory.
There's a lot. I had a great childhood. I had great parents, taught me great principles, and who loved me. I knew no matter what I did wrong. That would actually brings up the memory. We lived a little bit on a farm. So my grandpa had a dairy farm that he ended up selling, but we lived next door to my grandpa, and my uncle lived next door to him. And so we were all kind of in this same area in here. And so we had tractors, and even when I was before, driving age, my dad had me on the tractor helping do stuff. I remember lifting him up in a loader bucket to pick apples and to do things. And my job was to raise it up and move it over and drive him. Anyway, the particular experience was he asked me once to go get the tractor. And so I'm pretty excited, right? I don't know, maybe 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Maybe he was like 13, something like that. Go get the tractor. He needed it. So I was excited. So he's like, yeah. So I went over and I got the tractor, and I thought I was pretty confident because I'd driven it a bunch of times. But when you have a tractor that has a loader bucket, there's a lot of space at the front before you back up. And so what I didn't realize was there was a vehicle that was next to this tractor. So I backed up and turned that wheel and backwards, and then I took that loader bucket and it scraped all along the side of the car. And it was like my uncle's car or something like that. So I was pretty nervous. So I got the tractor to my dad, and then I just ran, and I went and hid. And I remember just being mortified, thinking, okay, my life is over. I've just ruined this car. And my dad didn't get mad. He just said, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. We'll figure this out. And he loved me. And that to me is a great example of a parent's love, of patience, of treating a situation. I mean, he knew financially it was going to cost some money. He knew that I was hurt, that I didn't do it on purpose. And, I think that's human interaction. We need more of that. We need more of love and understanding that people are going to make mistakes. And that's something that's really just been instilled in me forever, as I know that my dad loves me in spite of what I do. Yeah. He has a great love for me. So that's a childhood memory that comes to mind. Probably have others, but that's one. Not to get all sentimental and everything else, but that is one that I know my parents love me, and so I had a great childhood, and they taught me some great principles. And growing up on a farm where you have corn and other things around is not a bad way to learn hard work.
Excellent. I appreciate you sharing that story. I think the importance of family is immense. It's huge for me. It's something I emphasize in my own home, that family is everything. And so I can hear that in what you're sharing. And the other thing is I love how what you're describing after the fact is this safe environment that provides so much opportunity to learn if that safe environment exists. And as parents, I want my kids to feel as if that safe environment exists with me. I'm hoping that they can bring their challenges, their struggles, their problems with the understanding that I'm not going to judge and criticize, but I'm going to help. And so I liked what you shared. You used the word love a few times. I do this all the time with family and friends. So give me a synonym that you feel represents the word love. What does love mean?
That's an interesting question. The first thing that comes to mind, I don't know if it's a synonym, is unconditional.
Okay.
I think love doesn't have any if statements.
Okay.
That should be attached to it.
Yeah.
I think love comes with the good and the bad. I talked about, I'm having 25 years. My wife has overlooked some of my bad stuff for so long.
Yeah. And
I love her for that. And, she's not perfect. No one marries perfection. They marry potential.
Yeah.
And that's a quote that I love to live by. But I don't know. I think love just needs to be accompanied by unconditional. Like, it truly is love if is not love if there's conditions attached to it. It needs to be that you give of yourself freely, and that you're willing to accept people for who they are, and in spite of decisions that they make. Sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes they make decisions that hurt, but I think love is true when it's unconditional.
That's beautiful. I in addition to unconditional, I'd say without qualifiers. I don't ever want my kids to think they have to qualify for my love, that there's something they have to do in order to feel loved. And so I really like that. My word, by the way, is commitment. Okay. I've seen, like you said, my wife has seen my faults and my failings, and she's been there. I have no doubt she's committed. I have no reservation as to whether or not she's by my side. And that to me is love, when I can look at someone and realize that they're in it, good or bad, always going to be there. I don't have to question whether or not the person's going to be there. And I think that of a lot of people in my life. So
well said.
Yeah. You brought up holiday. You had a holiday party yesterday. The time of year we're recording this, it's the holiday season. So I'm going to ask, what's your favorite holiday?
Oh, wow. All of them? No. I think we love Christmas time. I think Christmas is a time where you slow down. I think Christmas is a time where you reflect. And, I am Christian, so therefore Christmas is really important to me as I reflect on, my own spiritual side of the house. I do believe that balance in life is important. You can't work yourself to the grave. You need to have balance with family. You need to have balance with spiritual. You need to have balance with that. And so to me, Christmas is a time to kind of stop and reflect. There's music that's associated with Christmas. There's memories that are associated with Christmas that brings families together. And you take time off work to really reflect on what's important. And so, yeah, I love this time of year. It's great when we start thinking about, Christmas and the holidays, and being together.
That's beautiful. I couldn't agree more. I love the music. Christmas is a big time for me. That Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's, this is the time of year that I just absolutely love and enjoy. I love the weather. I love the changing of the seasons. I love the time with family. I love the feel. And there's a giving element to it. You just want to help other people. So many great things. How about a movie? Do you have a favorite movie associated with the holiday?
Favorite movie associated with the holiday? Well, it's a little bit, I guess I would say naughty sometimes, but it's the Christmas, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, excellent choice.
It has some raunchy things in there, but we have to kind of overlook those. But we as a family, we speak those phrases. We laugh. My wife and I laugh at that one. You just can't go wrong with Christmas Vacation and Chevy Chase.
So I just saw it literally like 2-3 days ago. So I'm curious, what favorite scenes do you have?
Oh, let me count them. I mean, there's so many. Just from the very opening one where they're driving
to get the tree,
and then they get the tree, and then they open the tree in the house. Their interaction with their neighbors, Margot. I think I have a sweater that says, my wife has one is, "Why is the carpet all wet, Todd?" And then mine says, "I don't know, Margot." I mean, that's a phrase from the
it is
from the show. There's so many great scenes, and then when Cousin Eddie shows up there, as he turns the lights on, right? All of a sudden, Eddie is there. You can't go wrong with that one where Chevy Chase is totally surprised that Clark, I guess, Eddie's here, and then the dog's there, and he has some sort of sinus condition, the dog. So he's like, you better not pet the dog. And they call him Snots or whatever. I don't know. I could go on. And I don't want to hijack your whole show, but there's some great scenes.
It's beautiful. And the endearing love that they have for the family members, the quirky family members. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Grandma wraps up the cat. I mean, brings the cat, and
that's right.
The lime jello's coming out of the present, and Eddie licks it. Oh, that's good. Actually, he doesn't lick his own finger. I think he licks Clark's wife's finger.
So one of my favorite, I mean, there's, like you said, numerous scenes in there that are excellent, but one of my favorite that I always point out is I love how Eddie wears the dickie. Do you know what a dickie is?
I know exactly what it is.
I had one. Yeah, I had one of those as a kid. I wore that turtleneck that was cut out that you would wear underneath a sweater, and I wore that I remember wearing that to family things, parties, and so forth. So I had one, and to see him wear that, and he's got that white sweater on that allows you to see through and
the
see
green dickie. Yeah.
Oh, I just think it's hysterical.
As he drinks the eggnog out of the moose head cup. One of these days I'm going to get those. I always watch that and say, I'm going to get those cups. But
I've actually seen them. I don't own them, but I have seen them. So it's funny. Excellent. That was a good journey down memory lane there. I enjoyed that. Tell me about someone influential in your life that really impacted who you are, that was kind of a mentor. Who are they? What did they instill in you?
Well, I already talked about my parents. I would highlight that one for sure. I think they've been great mentors to me just about life. I mean, they're not business people, but I think the principles can be applied, the things that they taught me. That would be my first choice of a mentor. The spiritual aspect of my life is extremely important to me. I think they are all mentors. I would say, Jesus Christ is one of those mentors for me. I know for others, it's other individuals religiously, but for me, those principles are tried and true, and I'd like to be better at that. I think living those principles about, we talked about love here today. I think of understanding, and so I think he for sure is one of those mentors. And as much I can read about him and his life and his teachings and principles, and that I can try to apply those in my life is important to me. From a business side, I've had so many great mentors. I had one, his name was John Guttery. He was great. When I mentioned Central America and Panama, he was the president there, and I was the head of finance, and we worked together. We traveled the world in all the countries I mentioned before, and he would take time when it was unexpected to just mentor, whether it was in an airport, whether we were sitting side by side in an airplane, whether at a dinner. He took time, but he did it so in a way that was never judgmental. It was always in trying to help, and he would ideate, and he would say, hey, you know what do you think of this? I'm thinking this. And so he would bounce ideas off me. And so from a business side, that would be him. He's great. And I think now we've all gone our different ways, and he's in Minnesota today. And I shout out to John out there, but he's a great mentor, man.
Perfect. likewise have business mentors, individuals that have helped me just kind of learn principles in business, be a little bit more introspective as to decisions being made and how it impacts employees and customers. So I like how you shared that. And I appreciate you mentioning your faith and bringing in that element. I do believe that I'm likewise a much better person because of my faith, believing that as I do, that there is a God, and that and my faith also in Jesus Christ really does help me realize that I need to understand the decisions I make, I'm going to be accountable for them. And at some point, I do expect to stand before my maker and have to account for certain things that I've either said or done. And so it causes me to want to be better, do things differently, make amends when necessary. And I feel that makes me a better person because I'm accountable for the things I'm doing. I'm not just doing it in a vacuum. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
so many great men have lived and given us principles. I mean, Prophet Muhammad has also given us some great principles to consider. And I think that balance, that spiritual balance, helps us be better business people, helps us be better individuals, and to leave a better legacy on the planet, to leave it a little bit better than how we came. If I could expand on it just a little bit further, Please. Going back to that principle my dad, but he also was a spiritual man. And I know that he learned some of those principles by being a spiritual individual. Mm-hmm. We've made mistakes at Certus internally. We've made some mistakes that have impacted clients. There've been some financial mistakes that we've had to cover. There's mistakes that I think in the early part of my career, those are fireable offenses. Like, you cost the company X amount of dollars, like, you're gone. I don't believe in that. I do believe that those things, and I want to create an environment where it's a safe place to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. You can't tolerate mediocrity, but you can tolerate the fact that we're all learning together, and we use it as an opportunity, not as a chance to demean anyone or anything, but let's say, hey, this is what happened. This is what we're going to do to correct it. This is what we're going to do to make sure it doesn't happen in the future, and move on from that. And that people realize that, okay, hey, this is a safe place where I can spread my wings and fly, and I can take a little bit of risk here and there. That's the kind of culture that I want to create. And I think those kind of principles, that whether it came from my parents or from my own spiritual background, hopefully that I've tried to instill that in the environment where we work at Certus.
Yeah, I like your application of those things in the business setting. That's a great example of it. My experience has been, whenever I work with someone that's just simply God-fearing, I tend to have a little bit better interaction with them, only because I find that they make decisions similar to the way I would, just because of that principle of believing there's something else. So I appreciate that. Yeah. What you brought up failure just a second ago. What's a big failure that you've had that you've learned from? What was the lesson you learned from it?
I think I made some failures, like from my own personal investments here and there. Some have been succeeded really well. Some have not. But part of that is, I think you can trust people, but you also need to trust yourself, and you need to make sure you do your own due diligence, and you have to feel comfortable with that. For the most part, people have pure motives, and they're great. I think people are great for the most part. There are some that are squirrely, I guess I would say, are out to do something for themselves. But I think I've learned from my failures to trust in myself, and to not totally trust 100% in others. I think you can trust reluctantly. I don't know what's the right way of saying that, but that's what comes to mind.
Yeah. Reagan's thing, trust but verify, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah. Good. Okay. You brought up travel earlier. Love travel. I also lived in South America. I was in Chile, so love everything down there. But in your travels, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why? Not visit, live.
Live. I like living where I live today. I've seen the world. I like traveling the world, but I like living here in Utah. And the reason is I like the seasons. I like to be able to change my wardrobe, but I also like the different sports that you can do here. My wife does not like the cold. We lived in Arizona for a long time, and she reminds me around February or so, why do we not have a place in Arizona again? But I like the mountains here. I follow the local teams, sports teams. So that's a little bit of a sports nut there that I like to follow. And so
Yeah.
being here local where I can go to and attend those events in person, it's important to me, as well as hitting the mountains in the summertime, as well as, golfing in the summertime, as well as doing a little bit of skiing in the wintertime. I like the seasons, but I love visiting a lot of places, whether it's Hawaii, whether it's Argentina, whether it's Chile, whether it's Europe. We love traveling the world, my wife and I. And if we don't have in our Delta app a list of upcoming flights, we get a little anxiety because we like to go see the world.
I'm the exact same way. A trip a month. That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
It's probably a bit aggressive, a bit much, but it's typically what I experience. And so I'll typically try to do at least one every 6 to 8 weeks. So
Where's the last place you were?
last place I was in Hawaii.
Okay.
I was just there 2 weeks ago.
Really? Which island?
I was in Oahu and then Kauai.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Had an amazing trip. It was beautiful. Was there with family. And then just before that was the Dominican Republic, and I go to the DR this week.
Oh, fun. That is one place of all of I have not been to the DR. We are looking forward to that. We had something planned and then COVID hit.
Oh, okay.
So we had to cancel, but that's on our bucket list, is to get over there to Punta Cana and those parts over there.
That's where I'm headed. So there's a Haitian community center there that we support. We've been doing a few things there with the center, and we've got a project that we're doing this next week, and just helping the local youth. The Haitians, they're kind of estranged in the fact that they're, like you would see illegal immigrants here in the United States. They're in many cases illegal there as well. It's an island, and so they come over for a better living on the DR side as opposed to the Haitian side. And so there's some struggles that they're facing, and we're hoping to address a few of them as best we can in helping. So that's
sounds
what we're
interesting
going to do. Yeah. Let's talk about visiting with someone. I always like this question. If you could meet with anyone alive or dead, who would it be? And what would you like to learn from them? Ask.
I like to read biographies, and my wife believes that's like watching paint dry, but she thinks it's pretty boring. But the reason I like biographies is because they don't get to become the individuals they are by chance, and you can see their the things they struggle with, those kind of things. The individual, I mean, this may sound like, oh, this is a cop-out, is really somebody like George Washington. He had to make some really important decisions with respect to leadership.
Yeah.
It was very much a culture of kings. And, when he made that decision after 2 terms to step down, that set a tremendous precedence for us as a country and as an organization. But, he was one that had a lot of failures. He was one, I read that book about him, and there's many books that have been written about him, but Ron Chernow. Ron Chernow's a great author. He's the one that wrote Hamilton, by the way, that was inspired the hit musical. But Ron Chernow also wrote about George Washington, and he's a fascinating individual. He's one that I would be willing to sit down at the table and just understand so much about what his thinking was on leadership and how he was able to do what he did.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I love the founding fathers, the reading that I've done of them, studying who they are. The imperfect people that they were made phenomenal decisions. And as I look at the founding of our country, I have to respect the fact that, like the Great Compromise that occurred in Philadelphia, they had to make concessions, and they knew that. And that to me was politicking at its best. And honestly, it wasn't that the best came out, the perfect solution came out of it, but a compromise occurred, and it allowed things to move forward. And it's what enabled this country to begin. And I'm so grateful for those sacrifices. And if you look at through the revolution, so many of them who lost their families, their treasure, they gave everything for this to happen. And I'm always in awe and humbled by that. And so to bring up George Washington, I likewise would love to sit down and just understand he could have taken the reins and done so much with it, just out of pride, ego, and so forth. And yet for some reason he was willing to see the bigger picture and see that the country was greater than him. So
that's right.
So amazing. Yeah. All right. And I forgot to ask this, because of your travels, instead of living, is there a favorite vacation, a particular place that you go? I'm a traveler, so I'm curious what you would suggest.
We have a couple go-tos. We like going diversity, but we like Cabo.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. One, from Salt Lake, it's an easy direct flight on Delta. It's like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
You can go there. It's a dry heat. It's kind of like Arizona. You get all the Mexican food, which is great, Mexican culture, and we both speak Spanish, so it's kind of like we're at home being there. It's a quick trip, easy to get there. We have that already booked for January. Just make sure I get my wife some sunshine here in the winter.
That's right. It gets her through it.
And then we like Hawaii as well. So we like to go to Maui. We've been to a couple islands, but we really love Maui as an island. And so those are two go-to, this Cabo and Maui.
Been to both, like both. So excellent choices. All right, good. Mm-hmm. All right, books. We brought up books. You've recommended already one. Are there any like go-to books that you would suggest people read that you feel are very helpful in what you've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I already highlighted was great. The other one that I did, the second book that I did for our team, was Our Iceberg is Melting. And it's a little book. It's something you can read and sit down in like an hour and finish it, maybe an hour and a half. And it's got pictures. It has beautiful pictures about penguins and different things. And it's kind of written like a cartoon. It's probably about 10 years old, but it's one that impacted me. It's about the principle of change, and that and things are evolving all around us. I mean, not to give away the whole book, but really it's about, in the title itself, Our Iceberg is Melting. A group of penguins, they're just content as life is, but somebody kind of raises this flag and says, hey, I've gone underneath and see that something's happening here. And there's principles that are taught there about business, just knowing that if you're not evolving, you're kind of dying.
Yeah.
And that's just the way business works and how capitalism works. And so I've tried to instill in our team, like, yeah, we can get comfortable, and I'm a big process guy. I love to have repeatable things and process. However, we need to make sure that we have our sights set into the future to know what else is out there, that it's changing, whether your clients are looking for that next thing. And sometimes people look too much for the other shiny object that's out there, and they bounce around too much. However, I do believe that as entrepreneurs, they're always seeing what else they may be missing. And so I think organizations and individuals should always understand the changes around them. And so that was a great book. It's called Our Iceberg is Melting. I don't even remember the author. The author escapes me.
That's fine. It reminds me
of a
little
business fable. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of Who Moved My Cheese.
It is. It's actually, I think it might be the same author.
Oh, really? Okay. Because it's the same premise.
Yeah. It's just, it might be the same author, but somebody's going to look it up and say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But
yeah, it sounds like it's a climate change variation of Who Moved My Cheese, or Who Moved the Cheese. Yeah. So
they get committees together and they have, different naysayers and people mocking them. It's a good little, it brings up a good discussion. I mean, we read it as a team. I made the assignment, gave them a month to read it. We came back, had a lunch, and just talked about it and talked about what application is. And so sometimes the reason I like doing that and having book club as a part of a team, even though I do make it optional, is that you can, all of a sudden something happens and you can reference that book.
Yes.
You can talk about, hey, this is the iceberg. And people know when you say that, they know exactly what you mean. And so we learn together as a team. And I like that. Right now, we're reading The 7 Habits. We're going to do that over time. It's been years since I read The 7 Habits by Stephen Covey.
Yes.
And great book. I started it over the break again and realized, oh man, these are some principles I need to be reminded of. And so we'll probably do this one a little bit, break it up a little more, because it's better. Oh yeah, I want to break it up and have one habit. Let's talk about that habit for about a month and then go to the next habit. So we may take all of next year to read the whole thing, but I don't know.
That's great.
But anyway, that's book club.
By the way, I heard you make a comment at the very beginning of our conversation that was 7 Habits. I was going to call you out on it, but I didn't.
Which one was that?
It was seek first to be understood.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's a Coveyism.
Yeah, it's practical application. I mean, there's so many great things with those 7 habits. I think it's sold like 30 million copies or something, and it's tried and true. So
very true. I heard him speak when he wrote the book. I mean, I remember distinctly when he came in. I think he had published the book that year, and he was speaking of the principles. And I wasn't in a place in my life at that point to really understand what he was talking about, but it did at least resonate as to like sharpen the saw, right? It's you've got to understand that there's work smarter versus working harder. And there were a lot of principles that later, when I became interested in the book and read the book, I reflected back on that experience having him speak, and it just is built over time. So very interesting. What's a question that I should have asked that I haven't asked you that you've probably thought I might.
Yeah, maybe you're going to ask our follow-up question as to which of my teams I follow.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. Give me a team: baseball,
No.
football.
I like the Utah Jazz. I like the NBA.
Good.
I'm more of a college person, though.
Oh, okay.
I do like a lot of college. I follow Brigham Young University, BYU is my team. So
Perfect.
sometimes it's a lot of fun. Sometimes it's very painful being a fan of the Cougars. But I am a Cougar true and true. And in fact, just a fun fact. This shows you how much I am a Cougar. It's BYU, and so for short, it's just the Y. And my wife and I, we met there. Each of our kids have a Y in their name on purpose by design.
Okay.
We have license plates that are all reference to BYU, and so we're all in. We go to the basketball games, the football games, and all of that. So that's one of the reasons why Utah, aside from the skiing and golf and all those kind of things, it was 4 really seasons. Hard. Yeah. To put it into even more perspective, some remember the Jimmer mania that happened back in around 2011 or so. Jimmer Fredette was a big basketball player and national player of the year, and was all the hype around BYU. Well, that was when I was in Latin America, and I distinctly remember that it was during the NCAA tournament that I was in a very remote place in Argentina for work. And I was in my hotel room trying to get the internet to work so I could listen to this game. And I was frustrated. And I said, this is it. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot live. And so anyway, it was only a couple months later after that we decided to, I had finished my expatriate assignment and I decided to come back home, and I selected Utah as the place to come back home.
Beautiful. That gives a lot more reference context to everything. I like it. That's great. All right. So this is now your choice. I'm going to give you the option to pick the topic, and you get to determine what we're going to discuss next. So I'm going to give you 4 choices. Of the 4, pick one. Okay.
Okay.
So the first is faith. The next is music. The next is family. And the last is workaholic versus balanced life.
I think we've already talked about faith a little bit. What about music?
Let's talk about music. Is music a part of your life? Is it something that's very important to you?
Absolutely.
How so?
It always has been. It goes back. My parents had me in piano lessons when I was little, so I took piano for 8 years. I did the trumpet in high school. I was one of those choir boys. I wasn't an athlete. I was a choir boy in high school, and in fact, I was in performing group in the University of BYU. I was in the men's course for a couple of years.
Nice.
So music's always been a part of my life. And in fact, my wife and I's first date, we went to kind of a music concert, and we kind of go to that concert every year as in commemoration of that.
Okay.
It's called Christmas Around the World that BYU puts on there at the Marriott Center. So music is absolutely part of my life. In fact, it gets me through when I want to focus. I turn on some soundtracks. I'll start singing if I have some, music that has lyrics.
Okay.
And so if I really need to focus, I'll close my door and turn on a soundtrack of some sort.
Instrumentals.
Instrumental, like Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Some of those that gets me in a zone, I guess, to focus. So music is extremely important to me. And when I know that I really, really need to focus, I flip something like that on, and I'm in a zone.
Interesting. So one that comes to mind for me is Herb Alpert.
Okay.
So I enjoy Herb Alpert. I have a station that I've dedicated with a lot of jazzy kind of music and so forth. That's a great office type music for me.
And is that what you listen to when you're in the office?
Yeah, I do that. Well, I actually change it up a bit because I have people in the office. We have an open work environment, and the remote for so it's kind of like a bachelor's pad. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I've got a television on the wall with a sound bar, and whenever I come in, I turn it on. And it appears, I'm learning this, that no one else likes the music. Everyone prefers it quiet. So out of my own interest, I turn it on. But what's interesting is I try to keep it interesting, so I change up the stations all the time. I'll go from country to classic to rock to some jazzy kind of thing I'll do show tunes. We'll listen to obviously a lot of the musicals that are out there. I just love it. I love music. And there's my driving music. I won't listen to my driving music when I'm in the office. I mean, there's occasional music. It's suiting the environment, I guess. And so I have my go-tos.
In the car, music or podcasts?
Oh, interesting. So I've recently gotten into podcasts quite heavily, but I really enjoy either country when I'm trying to just drive casually, or I do have a heavy foot. So if I want to, I can get into some good rock music, and I'll enjoy that quite a lot. So
that's fun.
Yeah. I've got a side-by-side that I go riding in, and that's where I pull out the fast, hard music, because I ride fast.
Yeah. If I had like a rough day, or I'm really thinking about something and I know I can't concentrate, it's definitely not a podcast or a book. But for the most part, it's podcast or book. I actually like a commute time. So the office was originally in one county, and I live in another one. So I live in Salt Lake County, and it's in Utah County. So it's about a 35-minute commute for me, but I enjoy it because that's my book time.
Yep.
Or my podcast time.
Exactly.
But if I know I can't concentrate because I'm thinking about what just happened or an interaction that I had and I need to think through, then it's definitely music time. But yeah, continuing on further about that, I mean, we love the theater, and so music is a part of that. I serve one of the charity, one of my, service opportunities is I'm on the board for Hale Center Theater there in the Sandy area. So I do some of that and help with the finance committee there.
Beautiful.
So we go to all of those shows that they have at the Hale Theater. We go to Eccles Theater down in Salt Lake. So
exactly.
Our life is very much involved in music from many angles.
So Russ Bradshaw, is he still on the board?
He is. Yeah. He served on the finance committee as well. He was head, and then he's no longer head there, but he serves on the advisory board.
Do me a favor, say hi for me.
I will.
I know
Great
Russ.
Guy.
Yeah, the two Russes.
Yeah. Russ Bradshaw, great guy.
Russ Anderson. Yep.
I know him.
Anderson and Bradshaw. Okay, good. Small world.
Has he been on the show?
Yes, he has.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't do the video though. He did audio only.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, long time ago.
You got to get him on video. He's a lot better looking dude than I am.
He's a good man. I like Russ quite a bit. In fact, actually, he was not on the podcast. Okay. If I remember right, I think I just did a webinar with him. So I've had him on. I've had him once or twice, but I haven't done him in the podcast setting, I think. So maybe I need to reach out to him again. Yeah. Small world. Okay, good. Guy. All right. So the next thing is rapid fire. So I'm going to just ask you some things, and you're going to just pick one or the other, either or, real quick.
Okay.
You ready? Drive or fly?
Fly.
Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Read a book or watch a movie?
Read a book.
Money or fame?
You can do a lot of good things with money.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Okay, good. What I'd like to do is now wrap this up. I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought and just see what last words you'd have of advice and so forth. So first of all, obviously everyone listening, I want to thank you for participating, hearing this. This has been a great conversation. I think what Lee has been able to share with us today is phenomenal. I do want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Definitely do so. Set it up so you can get the notifications as needed. And more importantly, go back and listen to the past episodes. We've got a variety of excellent guests that we've had on the show where we've addressed topics ranging from marketing, selling, mental health, pricing services, client relations, so many more things. As for today, obviously, one of the things that I really enjoyed was the conversation that we had about purchasing the business. Lee's had a phenomenal career starting in the corporate world. He admitted that he didn't necessarily get drawn into accounting, but that's easily what he's done, and he's excelled at it. But then he went into that stage of retirement. He golfed as much as he could, skied as much as he could, and found himself in a position where he could purchase a firm, and he did exactly that, and he's had a phenomenal run. More importantly, he's grown it now two times over in nearly 2 years, so great growth and success there. But the things that we talked about as to how he determined the worth or the valuation of the business that he was acquiring, I thought was very insightful. I liked the conversation about retaining the principal owner beforehand, how she's stayed on board, the culture that they had in the office, and how he was able to retain a lot of that. We talked about sacred cows and whether or not there was anything that needed to be changed or couldn't be changed. Lots of great principles there. In doing so, we also talked about business and how he has learned some excellent principles, one of which I thought was very important, which is just creating a safe environment where people can make mistakes and learn and realize that we're not perfect, but we can better ourselves. I really enjoyed the book club conversation. Honestly, it's something that I have done myself before. And I just think a lot where, like Lee mentioned, you can have as part of your conversation within your office, basically reference points from past readings that you've had where everybody has some context to build upon. That's an excellent thing to consider as you're running your business, is basically being involved in a book club, continually learning and benefiting from that. The other thing that I'd like to also point out is he really talked about family and how valuable and important it is, and the example that he's setting not only for his children, but those around him, to really show how work ethic pays off and having that commitment. So a lot of great conversations. I appreciated him sharing his faith, talking about things that I think are very important. We brought up love, and I think that's a worthwhile discussion to consider. But at the end of this whole conversation, I hope that you found that he is, as we all are, committed to making our businesses be successful. There's just that all-consuming interest in what we're doing next, and he shared that a little bit earlier on. Now, as for offers, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do as listeners is definitely check out the episode description. You're going to find some things there that would be helpful to basically work on your business as they relate to the conversation today. For example, training staff. You can look there and see what resources are available to train your staff to become professional bookkeepers, professional tax preparers, perhaps going in so far as learning QuickBooks and so forth. Those tools and resources are available for you to actually implement with your team, and take those quality people that have proven themselves to be loyal and committed with good work ethic to give them the skills they need to actually excel in the business. The other thing that I'd like to point out is we talked a little bit about CFO services and the services that he's providing, in addition to the bookkeeping, the additional analytics to inform the client as to what they can be doing in business, how you can become more of a CFO and advisor and incorporate some of those services into your firm. If you'd like to learn more about what it is you can do to become, in fact, a CFO and advisor for your clients and get paid well providing those additional services, check out what it is that you can do from the Universal Business Builder. There's information that is regarding all of this in the episode description that I'd love for you to check out. Lastly, I want to ask for that closing thought. So what do you have for us?
Well, you summarized it very well. No, just thanks for having me, and thanks for what you do for the community. I think it's important that we as a community come together and learn from each other. There's so much opportunity out there, and I think if we come together and network and continue to learn, then we can make the world better out there and help people and entrepreneurs run their businesses in a way that they become profitable.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you again for being on the show. Everyone, this has been an amazing experience. Obviously, remember this. If you'd like more information on how to apply these principles in your business, reach out to us at Universal Accounting. You can do so going to universalaccountingschool.com or visiting us by calling 801-265-3777. And always remember, be safe out there. And if it's about accounting, it is universal.